Hey everyone, this is John over at the Model Haven, and today we're going to do build update number 3 on our Revell 1969 Camaro Z28 RS. But real quickly before we get to that, I did want to mention that I received one more shop card in the mail. This is from Brian over at BG's Model Workshop. I actually already had one of Brian's older cards with just the BG logo. But he graciously sent me one of the newer ones, and this one has the a really cool Challenger on it. So if you haven't checked out his site, you definitely want to check it out. He recently did a Chevy truck and a GTO Judge and a lot of cool stuff, so you definitely want to check it out. But for now, let's head to the bench and we'll take a look at where we're at with the Camaro. Okay, so we're going handheld today. This camera does have some image stabilization, so hopefully it won't be too shaky, but it's kind of an experiment. I had trouble setting up the tripod in a way where you could really see the interior of our Camaro. It's just very small and it's kind of hard to get into the details, and I think it'll be a little easier handheld, so we'll see how it goes. So before I tackled the interior, I did a little bit of research. Just looked at a bunch of pictures on Google of 69 Camaros, and it seems like if you had a white interior that it would typically come with a black dash and black carpets, and I think that actually looks pretty good, so that's what I went with on this one. But I'm not an expert at Camaros. I don't know if it was possible to get a white dash. I did notice other colors of interiors. If you got a red or a blue interior, for example, it was possible to get the dash, color keyed to the same color as everything else. I think maybe they just avoided that with white, just because, I don't know if you guys have ever had a car with a white interior, but they get dirty really easily. When I was a kid, actually, my dad had a 69 Ford LTD. Not the coolest car in the world, but that one was actually pretty cool. It was a two-door. It had a 351 Windsor in it, which was the engine that my dad taught me how engines work on. And it was like a dark blue, and it had a white interior, and it was sort of similar to this. Instead of a black dash, it had a blue dash that was sort of keyed to the exterior color of the car, and blue floors, and then the seats and the sidecars were white. And one of the things I remember most about that car is just how dirty that interior would get. My dad drank coffee in that car, and that was back in the days where you had little clip-ons for the door, or you had one of those beanbag cup holders that you'd put over the transmission hump. But there were just coffee stains everywhere, and the texture of the vinyl had places where just dirt and grime would get in, and it was impossible to clean. I remember as a kid I was determined I was going to get the inside of that car clean, and I just never did. It looked pretty terrible. So it can be a struggle with a white interior. I don't know if the Camaro interiors were that way. I think a lot of that has to do with just how much texture is on the vinyl, and whether you drink coffee in the car. But anyway, I think this actually turned out fairly well. It's there's lots of little problems. I'm just getting used again to painting the really small details, and I did run into some trouble with this. But as for the the seats themselves, hopefully you guys can see a little detail on this. I know with the white sometimes it just all gets blown out, but I did actually paint these instead of just leaving the bare plastic. And the reason that I did that is I was originally going to black wash them, and I did experiment with that on one of the side cards, but it no matter how light I did the wash, it just ended up looking kind of dirty. But just in painting the interior with this Tester's gloss enamel white, it did end up bringing out the details. It may be a little hard to see in the video, but I was kind of happy enough with the way it looked, so I didn't end up doing any kind of black wash on it. I think it's fine the way it is. And then for the trim, we can take a look at the passenger side. Maybe it's a little easier to see. I used one of these Molotow pens. This is the 1mm, to kind of do the detail on that, and I'm not very good at that yet. It's actually really difficult. The first attempt didn't work out too well, so I let it dry, and then I ended up masking. I just ended up using this TMH masking tape and then going over it again. And then once I took the tape off, then I cleaned up some of the original spots where it had gone over onto the white. But there's just a couple issues. One is when you're using the Molotow on a gloss paint, I found it's hard to keep the flow running on the pen. And you definitely don't want to push down on this gloss trim, because the pen will just go right off onto the part you don't want to paint. So I had a piece of paper, and I was kind of dabbing it to get the paint to run again. But also it's just, obviously I need a lot more practice, but, getting those little details with that pen was just really difficult. So I'm planning on using the pen for the body of the car when I get to that, and I'm definitely going to wait for the paint to completely dry, which is going to take forever, and then mask it up before I attempt any trim with that thing, because it's without masking it's almost impossible for me, and I'm not good at the bare metal foil either. So I think I am going to just on this one just stick with the pen and see how good I can get it, well, that's the plan for now. And then as for the details on the dash, I did use the pen for that as well. It's probably going to be hard to see, but there's a little, let's see if I can zoom in on it. You can get it a little bit. There's a Camaro badge right in the middle of the dash there, and I did use the pen to do that, and I couldn't keep it in those tiny little lines, and so I did have to go back and clean it up a little bit afterwards. But with the flat black that's on the dash here, it's a little bit more forgiving for that kind of stuff if you have to go back. And then for the gauges, I actually just used a toothpick and some white enamel paint, and I just used a technique I used when I was a kid, where you just kind of just get the very tip of the toothpick with a little bit of paint, and then you just get in there and kind of scrape it over the top of the detail of the gauges, and then if you're lucky, it'll just go on the gauges and won't pool up underneath. It's a little bit hard with a dash like this, where you have these really deep binnacles where the gauges are, because it's it just tends to get on the side of the binnacles, and then you got to touch it up, and I did have a little of that. Sorry for the shakiness here. But for the most part, it worked out okay. At least it makes them so they look like they're gauges. I know that you can buy photo etch kits for these Revell Camaros, and in the future I might do that for other kits. But for this one, I just tried to stick with paint. So the gear shift and the steering wheel were originally chromed. So I actually stripped those with super clean, and then painted them, and then for the chrome parts I used the Molotow pen, and that actually worked out pretty well. Getting some of the detail on the steering wheel, I used a Sharpie, and it's, as you can see, it's a little messy, but that was about as good as I could get it, and I didn't want to keep messing with it. So, but it turned out all right. We've got the enamel tan paint on the steering wheel. It's a little lighter than I'd hoped, but it looks good enough. I think I was going to stick with it. And then we've got some gauges there in the center. Those are actually decals that I got from the decal sheet. They're not super detailed themselves, but they give the illusion of gauges there, and I think it looks all right. And then sort of getting all those pieces, the center console and the dash and the seats and everything to line up, took some futzing around, and it's not perfect. The seats are not perfectly aligned, and the dash is a little bit too far forward. You can see how the top of one of those gauges is getting covered up a little bit, but it turned out okay. Some of that trim I did with the Molotow pen's a little messy on pedals as well, the gas pedal and the brakes. It's not too bad, but it's a little more it's a little messier than I would have liked. But overall, I'm pretty happy with it. So, you know, we're gonna leave it for now because this build's been going on for so long. I gotta move on to the next part. So we're gonna leave that for now. So in the next one, we'll be going over. You know, I just got to get this in. I've got the firewall painted here, and I just need to you know, attach the master cylinder and other stuff to that and paint the details a little bit, and then we're going to be focusing on the body, which I've been doing a lot of work on, lots of more trial and error. You know, I'd forgotten how hard it is to get a good paint job, and you know, this last version is not perfect either, but at some point I'm just going to have to you know, call it good enough just so that we can get this model done and move on to the next one. I know it's been really long between updates, and I apologize about that. You know, just lots of other things going on, and I do have some other hobbies that take up time as well. So, but I am trying to get a workflow together, so hopefully we can get these out a little more quickly in the future. And I did want to mention real quick that I did actually have one more card that I got in the mail a while ago from Charlie over at the Model Works. Charlie Mack, that's his newer, it's not new anymore, but it's his newer card, which is really cool. So I've got his old card as well, but I'm going to put this one on the board too. So that's it for now, guys. Stay tuned, and in the next, I think we might not wrap up in the next video, but certainly within the next 2 videos, we'll get this one done, and we'll move on to something else. But thanks for sticking around, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.